this is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker. Of course, please welcome our speaker tonight, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm an alcoholic. Wow, you guys are some group. I don't know if I can top Judy here, but anyway. I'm Laura. I'm an alcoholic and sober by the grace of God and the principles of this program, and I am truly, truly grateful to be here tonight. I'm a little bit nervous, so it'll take me a minute to get settled down, but I just... If I say one thing that I want you all to really hear tonight, it's that how truly grateful I am today to be standing here in front of you all, a sober member of this program. I think I'm here for purely selfish reasons, though, and they are that I wanted to live. And when I got to this program, I was absolutely, thoroughly convinced that I was on the road to dying. And I'm sure that you will agree with me once you hear my story. I'm feeling a little out of sorts. On October 28th, my brother passed away of this disease. He was 52 years old, and he had a stroke and a grand mal seizure from heart and liver failure, and it was a direct result of long-term alcoholism and drug addiction. A lot of you people knew my brother Buck, and you watched him come in and out. A lot of you tried to help him get sober, and he just could not get this program. And I had to say goodbye to the longest relationship I've ever had in my life and my hero. And, you know, Christmas Eve, when I was using, I would be, about 8:20? We would have just got back from the dealer's house about now and be setting up for an all-nighter. On Christmas Eve, it was a ritual that we would stay up all night, and I would man the door in the peephole while my brother would man the window, and that would start like our first 24-hour run. And so I thought that, being that as it was, and knowing my brother's outcome, that I needed to take some insurance out tonight. And I just want to thank Richard for asking me to speak. It's funny that he did that because it happened on the very day when I thought, I'm not feeling very good as a result of what I'm going through with my brother, and I think I better start to take some action. And that's what I've learned to do here in this program, is set my feelings aside and take some action. And when I take the action, the result changes for me. My sobriety date is April 19th, 2000. And so I'm about a little over 8.5 years sober. And I know a lot of you people in this program, and some of you watched me come into this room. I remember Mickey even helped me get into a rehab. And I put on my pretty suit tonight because I wanted to look like a lady, but now I'm sitting here regretting why I didn't put my leather pants on and my push-up bra, because it would have been fun to come rolling in going, all right, guys. Because a lot of you guys remember that when I came in. But when I came into this program, boy, I was not a vision for you. But boy, did I think I was, okay? I was tore up from the floor up and tired, and thank God I was out of ideas. I want to welcome the newcomers that are here tonight, and I sure hope that you guys are as tired as I was when I came in here, because, you know, that's what makes me stay. I come here because I need to remember what it was like for me. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up down in Orange County, and my father was in the Air Force, and my great uncle was a colonel in the Air Force. Came from a good family, my dad did, and he married my mom. But by the time I was born, my parents were pretty much hitting their own bottom. I have 4 older brothers and some younger, and my heroes when I was growing up were my older brothers and my father, and they were all drug addicts. and alcoholics and criminals. So for me, those that I looked up to were people who carried guns, drove fast cars, robbed liquor stores, and did a lot of drugs. There were always a lot of drugs and alcohol in my house. And this was just the life I knew. I didn't know any other living. So I had a lot of fear. There was a lot of violence. And that's not what makes me an alcoholic. But it helped me along to want to need that first drink. And when I was 8 years old, the first experience that I remember was my brother took me into a bedroom and he had me tie off his arm while he shot up heroin. And you have to imagine that this was my hero. I loved him. I thought, and I thought, this is what I want to be. And this is what I sort of carried with me. I fancy myself, that's a good word, huh? Primarily, I'm an alcoholic. And when I say that, I just want you guys to know that I did a lot of drugs. I did PCP, crack cocaine, anything and everything, a lot of prescription medications. But the first and last thing that I've always done is that I take a drink. I take a drink, and that's what gets me started. That's what makes me want to call the dealer. And at the end of the night, when the drugs are all gone, and I'm crawling around the floor trying to find that last rock, it's the drink that I always went to. And that's how, myself personally, I discern that I'm an alcoholic. I started drinking, as I remember, when I was 8 years old. My first drinking experience was that I was with some of my friends at their parents' house after school, and we opened up a liquor cabinet, and they had some Canadian Club, and I said, "Here, move out of my way," because I was going to show everybody how to do it. And I pulled down a drinking glass and took out a bottle of CC and poured it all the way to the top. And then I put my nose over the sink and took the glass and chugged it as fast as I could, just gulping the alcohol down. And I remember that, and I can still to this day remember it like going down my throat and that burning, you know what I mean? And just like, but what I really remember about it was that everything just smoothed right out. Everything. All that fear, all that discomfort, all of it, it just kind of smoothed right out. And that was it. I don't remember anything after that because I went into a blackout and I woke up in the front yard, passed out in my own vomit. And this sort of like characterized my drinking career. I never really wanted to use drugs or alcohol, like a lady. I just wanted to get fucking high. And I wanted to get as high as I could get because those who had taught me what getting high was about were like the big boys, They were serious people. And I wanted to run next to them. I wanted to feel like I measured up, I wanted to be a part of the crowd. And this was what my life was about. As soon as I took my first drink, it was about smoking pot. I think I was maybe 9 or 10 years old when I started eating LSD. And I would have to say that I've eaten probably at least, without exaggerating, probably 4,000 hits of LSD in my life. I mean, seriously. We ate LSD every single solitary day. Hits and hits and hits of LSD. Poured it down with alcohol. And just, this was it. This was our lives. We drove around. My brothers would, they would rob liquor stores and stuff like that. And we would gather up our wares for the weekend, and we would go find a park, and we would go into the middle of the park with blankets or drive motorcycles up into the mountains, and and we would camp out, and we would drink, and we would use whatever drugs we had. And as time went on, other things got added in. I remember we used to get jars of you know, the Shermies, where you used to buy the Sherman cigarettes, and you would dip them in the jars, and I used to sell them at school. You know, I'd go to school and sell them, and I would always get all this stuff from my brothers, and people would never expect it of me, because I was a girl, and I could hide it. We had a lot of secrets in our household. You know, there was a lot of violence, like I said, and so we had a lot of secrets, and I learned to keep those secrets from my brothers. There was a lot of shit that went down, and nobody talked about it, okay, because I would have to see things happen. When I was about, I want to say 10, well, let me go back for a minute. When I was 3 years old, they kicked open our front door, and they took us all to foster homes because my parents went through a divorce. And I was in that foster home until I was 7 years old, myself personally. When I was in that foster home, shit happened to me that a child should never see, okay? I had a woman that took the responsibility to take care of me, literally put me on a floor, sit on my chest, and take a lit cigarette and put it out on the side of my face. Now that hurts when you're a kid. I mean, it hurts. And I grew up with this stuff, but I was really angry because they took me away from my family, which was all that I knew, because they said they were bad people, and then they put me with people who did these kind of things to me. So when I came out of the foster home and I went back to my family, I was going to protect our group with everything I had. And one day, my brothers were sitting in the living room, and one of my brothers came through the front door, and he had a gun in his hand, and he was fucked up, and the gun went off, and it put a hole through a wall right behind my other brother's girlfriend, and the police came, and my brother was, he had robbed a liquor store, and he took off out of the house. Well, later that night, he came. His friend was shot during the course of the robbery in the back of the head. And when you are involved in an armed robbery and somebody is killed by the police, during the course of which you are responsible and charged with murder. So what ended up happening was I was laying in my bed in the middle of the night, and the SWAT team kicked out the windows from almost every side of our house, and they took my brother to prison. And that's when I started to realize that there are consequences involved in the actions that we choose, sometimes eventually. And this was my first real experience with this type of thing. But it didn't stop me from using. I just found different people and different ways to do that. But this was my life, and this went on, you know, through different phases and different brothers and different prison terms and, you know, different drugs and all kinds of stuff. And when I was about 16 years old, I ran away from home, and I came up to Los Angeles, and I got into the adult film industry. And I thought this was going to be perfect for me because, A, it got me away from home, but what it did was it facilitated a lifestyle for me that allowed me to use drugs and alcohol to excess and be accepted for it. And that was really cool. I mean, I did this for years and was a great success. But the problem is that no matter how much money I made, no matter how much success I had, inside of me, I had this big fucking hole that I just could never fill. And it didn't matter how many drugs I did, how much alcohol I drank, how much sex I had, how much shit I bought. And I had all of it at different times in my life. But I was restless, irritable, and discontent, and I just didn't know why. So my life progressed like this, on and on and on, and what happened for me was I began to get arrested. And the police don't really take kindly to people who, use crack cocaine when they're driving down the freeway in their cars. It's kind of easy when you see somebody going down the freeway at 140 miles an hour with a crack pipe stick out of their mouth and a torch out of the side, trying to get a hit while they're driving, doing one of these, and I just had this reckless sort of abandon for any semblance of the world, like, fuck you. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do what I want. And this is what's going to happen. So I had absolutely no discipline whatsoever. And they don't take kindly to that. I had a boyfriend at one point that was a Hell's Angel. And he got arrested for somebody died during the course of a fight. I wasn't there, so I don't know what really happened, okay? And he called me, and he was out in the middle of Ventura County, and he was in a hotel. And I jumped in my car, and I said, I'm going to bring you out some cash to get away and whatever he needed and blah, blah, blah. And I was driving. Like I said, I was going really fast, and I dropped off the money, and when I dropped off the money, I saw cop cars go this way and this way. And he said, get the fuck out of here. And so we were arguing. So anyway, I jumped on the freeway, and the next thing I know, there was 4 cop cars pulling down each side of my car, and they had shotguns out the window. And they were saying, pull immediately to the side of the road or we're going to commence shooting. And I was like, oh my God, they're fucking talking to me. And, I thought, well, I guess I better pull over and see what these guys want. Shit. And that was the first time I got arrested. And, they took my ass down. They pulled that car apart, and they took the hubcaps off of the car. And what happened was I had this little 500 SL Mercedes, and I don't know if you've ever seen these kind of cars, but they have these little things on the side of the doors that open up, and they're these kind of hideaway things. And I used to keep drugs in there, and like glass pipes and just garbage. You know what I mean? It was like, if you ever walked into my house and you looked under the couch, there was torches, and there was like, there was bottles of booze and shit, but on the outside, everything looked really good. And these people took my car apart, and they took me to jail the first time. I remember standing up in Ventura County Ventura County Courthouse, and they said, we're going to put you on diversion. And I thought, oh, that's great. My attorney said to me, you're going to get a free pass on this one. At that point, he had not, up until then, known that I was a crack cocaine addict. Because at that point in my life, it was just starting to show. And I hid it really well. But I was arrested for methamphetamine and, paraphernalia and under the influence and driving under the influence and possession while driving. Some pretty serious things. And I wound up, for some reason, a lot of the charges got dropped, and I walked out of there on diversion. And I thought I had a free pass, and I thought I was real hip, slick, and cool as a result of it, and that nobody could really touch me. But what had really started to happen to me was what really mattered, because I had started to use at that point in a way that took a turn. And as I remember, and as when I talk about it, it's that I finally, instead of hiding it and keeping it clean and like doing it on the weekends and then straightening up on the weekdays and going off to work and doing my life like that, I finally just started to really embrace my addiction, where I knew it was killing me. I did not care. I wanted to just do fucking drugs and do more drugs, and that was it. And this was when I started to like stay up for like 4 to 7 days in a row. And I would buy bags of dope and bottles of alcohol, and there was never, ever, ever enough. There was never enough. I would go to grocery stores, and I would buy those half-gallon jugs of vodka. And and I would just keep it in my house, and this is what I did. I had people over, we partied, we had, we did all these crazy things. And I just felt like inside, like I was dying, and there was nothing I could do about it. I could not stop the snowball. I speak till 10 to 9, right? From coming down the mountain. And the problem at this point was I had become increasingly more and more paranoid every time I would use. And I used to have this thing where I would say, I'm going to get my tip. And what that would consist of was I would like take a drink, and then I would take a hit, and then I would drink a bottle, and then I would do something else, and I'd have to take a Valium, and I'd mix all this drugs and kind of chemicals together to get like what I would consider my ultimate high for the night, and that was, I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. But what happened was it constantly moved over. It would constantly move, or it would become more. And I started using 4 7 days in a row, and on my last run, I was up 14 straight days in a row. I was down in Orange County. I was on diversion. I went into some kind of paranoid psychosis, and I remember standing halfway up and trying to look out the window and being in a fit of paranoia, and I couldn't sit down, and I couldn't stand up, and I couldn't get high, and I couldn't stop. And I went into convulsions, and the next thing I know, I woke up, and I looked down, and I guess I had gone into convulsions, and I had passed out. And I woke up, and my body was covered in abscesses and boils, and I could not figure out where they came from. And I sat up, and I sat up, and the first thing I did was I reached for my pipe. And I looked down at my arm and I said, I can't fucking believe my life has come to this. I can't fucking believe my life has come to this. And I picked up my cell phone for some reason instead of my pipe, and I called 911. And, I just got to say this to you. I don't come from a cop calling family. We don't call the fucking cops. You know what I mean? We don't come from that place. You die with honor, but you don't call the fucking cops, And I called the cops on myself, okay? And something went back and forth. They said, call 911. I called they said, call the hospital, and they wouldn't answer the thing, and they didn't know who I was, so I called them back and said, hey, fuck you guys. I'm in the middle of a relapse, and I'm like and I gave them all my charges and stuff, and they said, what's the address to where you are? I highly don't recommend that you do this, because what happened to me was 4 cop cars pulled up out in front of my family's house, and they got out of the car. There was about 4 cops in each one, all getting out of cars everywhere, and I thought, oh my God, all this for me? And they went like this to me. Okay, and I didn't realize what I looked like, because I didn't realize anymore what was happening to me. I didn't see myself from the outside. And what happened was he grabbed me by the top of my hair, and as soon as I hit foot on public sidewalk, don't step off of private property. And every one of these cops gathered around me in a circle and beat me for about 20 minutes straight with billy clubs. Beat me, kicked me, pulled my fucking hair, ripped my clothes off. Then they handcuffed me, and they leg cuffed me. And they picked me up by my feet and the back of my hair, face down, and they threw me in the back of a police car. And I thought, this fucking sucks. You know, they took me to the police station, and because of my history in the adult business, they ripped my clothes off me. They took fucking Polaroid pictures, and it was just unbelievable. And I thought, Jesus Christ, I gotta fucking do something about what's going on with me. And somebody said to me, you know, you should go to some of those meetings and get some signatures because you're really gonna need some help when you go to court. And I said, okay. And I swear to you, this was the first time I'd heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it was the first time I'd ever walked physically into a meeting. And I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and when I got here, I was here for one reason, and that's because I was dying, I was going to jail, and I wanted to get some signatures and get out of what was going on with me. And I walked in and I met people like Mickey Bush. And people like Mickey Bush, you know, like Al Sines. And people that had a lot of time. And people that were like fucking broke down like me. And said, they loved me. They said, come on in, get a seat. I was fucking shaking. I was kicking. The things that were happening to me, I was completely incoherent. And they welcomed me. And they've always welcomed me. And I sat down and they started to talk, and something in me changed. I said, that's what's wrong with me. That's what's going on right there. That's what's going on. So I began to get wind of what was actually going on with me, but I didn't at that point know what to do about it. And I was scared, and I didn't want to ask people for help, you know, and they kept saying, you got to get a sponsor, and you got to work steps, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. You know, I just want to say this to you, that I got sober with the old timers. They said, you're going to a fucking rehab. I was going to prison for 2 years, okay? They said, if you're lucky, you will do a year. I don't know how the people in Alcoholics Anonymous did it, but they said to me, if you really get sober and you stay sober and you work the steps and you do what's suggested, if you take care of your primary problem, everything else will take care of itself. And I said, well, what does it fucking matter if I get sober? Because I'm going to prison anyway. If you were going to prison for 2 years and you were like me, you'd want to be able to still get high because that's some scary shit. And they said, you know, we're not going to help you unless you're willing to do the work. So when I first started to do it, I thought, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just do it for a minute. And while they think I'm doing it, maybe they'll help me and then everything will change. Because I'm a crafty little, you know, alcoholic, gonna run my shit, right? And the funny part about it was all these people looked at me and they said, yeah, you're gonna run your shit, Laura. You just keep running your shit and get over there and pick up that broom, and you see those coffee cups over there? Yeah, there you go. You can wash them and you can do this and you can do that. And you know what's funny? There was something in me just began to change, and I felt at home. I felt at home. And I started to work steps. You know, it wasn't hard for me in the condition I was in to concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic, that my life was unmanageable, okay? And coming to believe in a power greater than myself, that was a little bit different. You know, seeking God when you had grown up like I had, that's a whole nother story. But turning your will and your life over and trusting and learning to trust, that was one of the biggest things that ever, I think one of the biggest hurdles that I ever came across in Alcoholics Anonymous. But when I was able to take the leap of faith, however feeble the attempt was in that moment, I think by demonstrating the willingness, you know, it says in the book that when we demonstrate the willingness and pull the door open, that it then pushes open all on its own. And that was what my experience was in this program. And when I started to see the results changing for me as I took the actions, I wanted to take more actions because, being an alcoholic and suffering from the disease of obsession, I then became obsessed with being in the program and getting well. And that has been my experience for myself, has what has really kept my feet on the ground. What do I got, like 5 minutes? Okay. I just want to say, when I went into court and I was going to prison, they put me in a rehab and they said, let's sentence her when she gets out. When I went into the rehab, I started to work the steps. I got into the program and I started to help other women. I got involved with people that put me in step studies and started to really take the program on and work it to the best of my ability. And I did what I was told, basically, because I was out of ideas. And when I walked into court 4 months later, the judge said, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to put you on felony probation, and we're going to watch you really close. But we're not going to put you in jail because we don't think that jail is going to treat what's wrong with you. Because alcoholism and addiction is not treated by putting people in jail. And I was grateful for that. And I did a good turn because of what they did to me, for me at that time. And I put everything I had into being in this program. I've sponsored a lot of women, and with every single relationship I've ever had, I've grown myself. I am so grateful to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for everything it's given me. I was talking earlier about my heroes when I was a kid. When I got into the program and I got sober, I wanted desperately for my big brother to follow me into the program. He was the closest relationship I had ever had in my life. And he came around the rooms and tried to get sober. And I don't know what the difference was between my brother and me, but I think that for me, I was willing to set aside my ego and do what people told me to do, even when it didn't feel right, and it didn't feel comfortable, and it didn't feel like the fashion. The suit didn't really fit me. It didn't feel right in the beginning, and it took me a long, long time to continue showing up, feeling uncomfortable, and doing what I was told to do before I started to change. And the thing is that it didn't change to suit me. I started to change to fit into the program itself. That's the best way that I can explain it. And I did everything to bring my brother and help my brother get sober, and he couldn't get it, and he couldn't get it. And then I took a third step, and when I take a third step, every morning I get up since the day I got sober, and I do the same thing. I take the pillow from behind my head as soon as my eyes open, because my disease goes on the minute I open my eyes. And I take the pillow from behind my head, and I put it on the floor next to the bed, and I roll out of bed onto my knees, and I say the third step prayer, and I ask God to keep me sober that day. And in my mind, when I do that and I say, God, I offer myself to thee, it's up to God. It's not according to Laura what it's going to be. It's up to God. And I wait to hear what the call is going to be. And on October 28th, I got that call, and it was in the voice of my 30-year-old niece who said, Aunt Lenny, I don't want my daddy to die alone. And a year earlier, me and my brother had stopped talking to each other because he was going to take a 9-month chip, and he was fucked up on the phone, telling me he was going to take a 9-month chip. And I said, dude, what are you doing, man? you're fucking loaded, and you're going to take a chip, and this program really means something to me. It doesn't have to mean something to you, but it means something to me. And he got mad, and he hung up on me, and we weren't talking. And he had a resentment. And when I got to that hospital, it wasn't about who was right and who was wrong. The book says we disregard the other person entirely. Where was I? Where have I in our relationship been selfish, self-centered, dishonest, self-seeking? Where is it? What is my part in this? And what I saw in that moment, because this program gave me the ability to see clearly my own part in things, I got on my knees and saw a window of opportunity, and I said to my brother, I am truly sorry for anything I may have ever done to cause you pain, intentionally or unintentionally. All that matters in my relationship with you is that you know right now how much I love you, and that I don't want you to suffer. And I want to thank you for our relationship. I want to thank you for the lessons. I want to thank you for everything that you've given me. And I thanked God for giving me that opportunity to be there and to have that moment with my brother, because I can look myself in the mirror today as a result of making that amends in that relationship. That's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous did for me. It allows me the tools, if I pick them up, to be able to get up no matter what I've done, because I've done a lot. I've done it all. Okay, to go back and clean my side of the street and change what I can and accept what I can't, so that I can get up in the morning and I can look myself in the mirror and I can get another day sober. I live in this program one day at a time between now and when I go to bed tonight. There are no guarantees. But hopefully tonight I will have another night sober, and tomorrow morning I will be able to wake up and say Merry Christmas to my brother's grandkids, because I did the work that was necessary today. Thank you.
Okay.